Today, I'm joined by a former New York police officer, recently featured in one of MrBeast's 100-day challenge videos. Lenny, welcome to the Mike Squires and Friends podcast.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Dude, it's been an insane journey. You know, the video's almost at 100 million views, dude. How does that feel?
I mean, it's surreal, man. For me I think the craziest thing is every time I go back to look at the views, I see myself on the thumbnail. That's wild. You know, he very rarely puts the people or the participants that are in the video on the thumbnail. And what's crazy is that's Ian. And they replaced it with Jimmy's face.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
So, can we talk about that a little bit? Because there was a day that you guys shot thumbnails, right?
There were days.
There
were days that we shot thumbnails.
So what does that process even look like?
Yeah, the process is pretty intense. It's actually very impressive as well because I did not understand how much went into the thumbnail process. Out of everything that I learned while being in there, that was the most intriguing things to me. We spent about 2.5 to maybe 3.5 hours each time that they came in to work on thumbnails, and they came 3 separate times. And the reason why is because they wanted to see the progression, our haircuts, facial hair, whatever else that might have come along that would be able to determine which thumbnail they should go with. The first time was probably after the first challenge that I believe that we did the first thumbnail, and I was wearing the jumpsuit. The second time, I believe that's when they came with the uniform, and the thumbnail that's there now is with me wearing the uniform, and then obviously they have artists and graphic designers, throw a little AI in there, and during that process, each time we're making different faces, doing different poses.
Is there somebody there directing you?
Absolutely. It's about 3 or 4 people that are there. There's one person taking the photos. There's another person that's moving and setting things up, positioning stools, positioning little boxes and milk crates for us to stand on to make sure that we have the perfect height. I mean, it's really intense. The lighting was the top of the top lighting that you could buy. And yeah, they really put their all into it. He has a full-time team just for the thumbnails.
Yeah, dude, I want to talk about some of his production, but before we get into that, I kind of want to learn a little bit more about Lenny today, dude.
Let's do it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Mike Squires and Friends podcast. You can support by subscribing on YouTube or downloading on your preferred podcast platform. And definitely go do that because it helps us grow and I can have more incredible guests on the podcast. The Mike Squires and Friends podcast is proudly sponsored by DistroKid. Looking to broaden your musical horizons as an artist? Discover DistroKid. With its smooth and rewarding music distribution platform, DistroKid offers unlimited uploads while ensuring artists retain 100% of their royalties and earnings. Join the community of over 1 million artists who trust DistroKid to distribute their music across major platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, and so many others. Having personally used DistroKid since 2018, I can attest to their superiority amongst distribution services. Collaborating with fellow artists has become effortless, especially with the ability to easily send splits of songs, streamlining the creative process. With the DistroKid app, accessing these benefits is now more convenient than ever. Safely sign up or log in with 2-factor authentication, upload releases on the fly, monitor earnings, and withdraw funds from your DistroKid bank. Stay updated on royalties through push notifications, effortlessly share hyperfollow links, manage account details seamlessly, and track streaming stats from Spotify and Apple. Additionally, explore Mixia for professional-grade mastering, DistroVid for music video distribution, and Instant Share for secure file sharing with collaborators, producers, and more. The DistroKid app is available on both iOS and Android. Download it today from the App Store or Google Play Store to revolutionize your music career. Visit distrokid.com/VIP/Mike Squires to get 30% off your first year membership. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Mike Squires and Friends. What made you want to become a police officer? How did that all come to be?
Yeah, so initially I just wanted to be an attorney. I worked for a law firm at the age of 17 through 21. And, and excuse me, all of the attorneys that I work with, after being there for about 2 years, they told me do not become an attorney. And the reason why is because they went to school, college, then law school for 3 years. And they said the amount of money that they got paid in coordination with the amount of hours that they were there, it just didn't make sense. And the loans that they had to pay back, they just said that it wasn't worth it. So I said, all right, I'm already going to school for criminal justice. I was going to community college. And from there, I started working at Stop and Shop doing loss prevention. So I said, I'm going to school for criminal justice. Let me do this loss prevention thing. And one of my friends and my father and my uncle were like, just take the PD test and, it'll set you up. He was like, if you're fighting at Stop and Shop for DVDs and chicken wings or people stealing things like that, you might as well just become a cop. So I became a police officer more so for the stability. Yeah, for the stability, and when I say stability, I'm talking about the salary, the benefits, and of course, the pension.
Yes, we got to talk about that. So you were an officer for 17 years.
Yep.
And then you decided to take a step away.
Yes.
Why?
Well, the reason why is because I am a man of faith. And with me being a police officer, there were a lot of ups and downs in my life. And I realized the majority of the downs, it was a lot more downs than ups, I would say. But the majority of the downs were because I was not following God. I was not following Christ. And it came to a point where there was a lot of turmoil between my now wife and I. We already had 2 children. I didn't feel fulfilled. I was having nightmares night after night to the point where it felt like I couldn't tell if I was asleep or not. And that's how much I was, going through it. And I just felt lost. So one day I just decided to open up my Bible because I couldn't sleep because I was having tormenting nightmares. And God put some people in my life that at the time seemed like they would help me financially with doing real estate. And you also had the COVID pandemic that came up and also a mandate. So there was like this huge, 3-layered sandwich of things that got me to leave. But my main thing was to follow God because I realized that I was lost and confused and I needed guidance in the next journey that I knew I would want to take after kind of being pressured to figure out if I was going to get the vaccine and follow the mandate or not. So I said, you know what, let me just pray to God. He's putting these different opportunities in my way for a reason. So I'm going to trust him and I'm just going to leave.
I want to talk a little bit too about your officer journey. Like, what was one of the hardest things in your 17 years? You have like just a moment or something where you're like, dang, maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah. A lot of the hardest moments with being a police officer, especially in New York City, is the fact that a lot of the civilians and the people that we serve are treated as numbers. Yeah, so earlier on in my career, I got on in 06. That's the term that we use when you first get hired and start working. That was probably the beginning to the height of the UF 250 stop, question, and frisk era. I did what's called impact patrol for 6 months, where they put you in a high impact area, which is a high crime area, on foot for 6 months. And the way that looked was every night from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m., we went out on foot in these high impact areas, and we were just summons writing machines. You go out, you spot somebody that parked illegally, maybe, they're driving crazy, but the biggest thing was criminal court summonses and UF 250s. At the end of the night, each night you had a sergeant that would be at what's called return roll call, and they would tally up all of your numbers. All right, how many summonses did you write? How many 250s did you write? How many C summonses, B summonses, A summonses, which is included in the summonses? Or did you have a collar? Did you have an arrest? So I realized as a police officer, yes, I did want the stability, but I still had in my mind what I thought a police officer would be, which is you respond to 911 calls, you write a summons here and there if you happen to see it. But I didn't know that we would be like it would be like a hunt for summonses.
Yeah.
You know?
And I could imagine like that would just take all the excitement or anything, like, you know what I mean? Where it's like you think it's one way and then it's like.
Yeah. It really threw me for a loop. But I said, you know what? I'm already in it. So many people are proud of me because I'm a police officer now. And I've always wanted a family. I want a house. I want the cars. I want the motorcycles. I want the vacations. And I want the pension. So I'm going to stick with it. From there, I went on to Midnights. I did Midnights for 3 years. And once again, it was just all numbers-based, very numbers-driven. We would get forced in and mandated to do overtimes where we were assigned to a van, what they call the paddy wagon. People might call it a paddy wagon, but the police vans. And there'll be about 5 of us in the van, you know, sometimes maybe 3 or so. And we would get forced to do these overtimes. And with doing these overtimes, we had to write 5 criminal court summonses and 5 UF 250s.
I can't even imagine, but what happens if there isn't 5 out? Like, do you just have to you stay there until you find them kind of thing? Like, what does that look like?
If there's not 5...
There better be 5?
If there's not 5, you have to come up with something. I mean, I hate to share this, but it is what it is. Like, this is just part of my purpose, and this is to inspire other police officers because I could see it getting back to this eventually. But there'll be times where I'll see somebody leaning on a car that wasn't theirs, and I'll be like, all right, you know, let me write this person for creating a hazardous condition to this person's car, maybe scratching up. But that's the type of pressure that we had. And if you did not write these 5 Cs and these 5 250s, then it was like, okay, so Bradley, next time you ask for a day off, you're not getting it. Or Bradley, instead of you having this post today or doing this assignment today, now you're going to go on the transport.
They'd hold it against you.
They hold it against you.
Yeah. Well, on the flip side, let's talk about some of the more rewarding things from being a New York police officer, because there's got to be something that, like, you know, was fulfilling about it. Yeah.
Of course. One of the most rewarding things were the police officers themselves that I got to work with. I work with some very, very good people, a lot of people that always intended on doing the right things, you know, men of faith, women of faith, just really solid people, hardworking people that just wanted to make a living for their family, but kind of got caught up in the politics of the job. So my heart really resonates with other police officers because I know their struggle and I know what it is that they're going through, and I know the mental health issues and the spiritual health issues, and I really sympathize with them. But in addition to that, just being part of the East Harlem community, you know, Spanish Harlem, El Barrio, 2-3 Precinct, and going from, one of the things for me was, eventually I got to the point where it was like I was put in units where I was able to do my job freely and I wasn't pressured to, you know, try to fabricate things out of pressure.
Yeah.
And when I would deal with people and do my job correctly and people disliked me for it, but I had a clear conscience and knew that what I was doing was right. And if they disliked me but saw that I was consistent with what I was doing and trying to do the right thing for the neighborhood, I gained a lot of respect from people that disliked me and people that were career criminals that appreciated what it is that I did, and I was able to build bonds and relationships with.
It's really, like, even just hearing you talk, dude, like, being a cop, I can't even, it's a tough job, dude. It's also, in my eyes, at least from my point of view, scary job, dude. You know what I mean? Because you deal with a lot of the problems that people don't want. Like, you've seen nightmares, I'm sure, dude.
Yeah, I've seen some crazy stuff, man.
Yeah, so I don't even want to go too far into that. I want to pull it, you know, I want to start pulling it towards purpose, because that was something we were talking a little bit before the podcast. And, you know, to leave a job like that after 17 years when your pension's at 20, like, that's a big choice to make, you know? And in order to make that, you have to be feeling, you know. So I would love to talk to you just about, you know, taking that leap and, like, what it was leading up to that moment, and, what you thought your purpose was and where, after now that you're here, it's like how everything has transpired.
Yeah. So getting on to my purpose with me leaving the job at 17 years, a lot of it was, okay, I'm gonna crush real estate. I'm already doing some of this stuff now that I'm gonna have free time and I have these people that, are saying that I could pretty much ride on their coattails. Like I'm gonna kill it. I had the nice cars, I had the nice watches, I had the motorcycle, and I just thought everything was gonna be good. I had these people in my corner. We started up a property management business, had a couple of clients, or had a client with a couple of properties. So I thought that was just gonna, that was gonna take off. And in that moment, I thought my purpose was just to talk about the job. I thought my purpose was just to put people onto what happens in law enforcement and to help other members of law enforcement feel like they've been heard, right? But after getting robbed for $100,000 from my business partners, that put me in a slump. And I still had money saved over. I had a lot of money saved because I knew I was going to leave. And, working on real estate as well, I was able to save some of the money that I made from doing real estate. With me working with these people and then getting robbed from them, getting robbed by them, it put me in a pretty huge slump, and I realized that I had nothing and anybody to depend on. My wife, she stayed at home. I even tried getting into crypto. I dropped like $15K on crypto because I was like, I got to make this money back. There's this dude that was going to my gym. His name is Crypto God John. Shout out to Crypto God John. He's a killer, man, when it comes down to crypto. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to take this guy's course. I'm going to get into his Discord. I'm going to turn this $15K to like 150. I tried doing leverage trading, and I just got wiped out. And that was one of the hardest things that I had to do, was tell my wife that I lost $10K in crypto over the course of 2 days.
Yeah, I can't imagine that conversation, dude.
Oh my goodness, bro. But that's how I realized, I think that's the only time I had something that was really hard to tell my wife, and I just told her flat out, without delaying it or anything like that. I had to go through those circumstances to realize, like, I can't save myself. Quite often when people get into these circumstances, they try to figure out, what do I have within me? Who do I have around me? What is it that I know that I could do to dig myself out of this problem? And they just go after one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and they still come up empty. And usually, especially in law enforcement, it results in alcoholism. It results in womanizing. It results in over-the-counter drugs, pornography, different coping mechanisms. Or it's like, okay, I need mental health. I need to take care of my mental health. But what a lot of people don't realize is the core to that is being grounded spiritually. And me, I'm Christian. For me, Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the light. I had to get to rock bottom to depend on God to get me out of the situation. So now my Bible, I was in it that much more. Not only that, with me leaving law enforcement, another reason why is because of those coping mechanisms I no longer wanted to be a part of. Once I started to dig into my faith, I realized the things that I was struggling with. Pornography. Now, a lot of people, they don't want to talk about being addicted to porn, but being addicted to porn doesn't mean it's you watch pornography 5 times a day, 5 times a week. It could be once a week. If it's something that you have to continue to watch to cover how you're feeling, and it's a coping mechanism, it's an addiction. That was something that I was made aware of through the grace of God that I had to work on. So immediately I joined a men's group that I still attend to this day every Saturday that focuses on that. And the reason why it focuses on it, and I'm in clean, when it comes down to pornography and all that other nonsense, through the grace of God, only through him. But what that helped me realize, and God told me to get into that, is it uncovered a lot of my traumas from the past. Everybody has their own traumas. Everybody has their own struggles. And what it's done is helped me uncover a lot of those things that were from when I was younger, being rejected by other women, not feeling like I was enough for my parents because I didn't do well in school. It wasn't really for me, right? So by me following Christ and following God and then being led to this group to help me uncover a lot of my issues and my problems to hitting rock bottom, and now realizing that this coping mechanism I can't use this as a coping mechanism anymore. It made me use God as my coping mechanism.
I really appreciate you being vulnerable too, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are out there, no matter what their circumstances, just being a victim to their vices. You know what I mean? Because too much of anything is terrible. 100%. You know what I mean? So it's just hearing you talk about it is just like, to me, it's like really empowering, man. And you know who I think of when you talk about some of these things too? My close friend, Ian, because at one point in his career, when I heard you say you couldn't save yourself, it's like that was kind of Ian during the club days. Like that's my, it's my guy. I love him to death. But, he just kept going deeper and deeper and deeper until he hit his rock bottom.
Ian and I's stories are very parallel, but in different ways. We both have our rock bottoms. I think everybody that winds up rising to the top rises that much effectively and efficiently when they hit rock bottom. Anybody that rises too quick without ever going to rock bottom usually becomes delusional because they just think that they're always going to win.
They don't have the perspective.
They don't have the perspective. Had to happen to me. It had to happen to him. Now we have the experience, we have the failure, we have the pain that we don't want to go back to.
No, I feel that, dude. Because, I've had my experiences in my life too, and you may not know this about me, but my house burned down and we had lost everything. So I pinned that as my moment. And, I say this to Ian too, and I feel this way about myself, but these things actually end up being blessings in disguise because at this point, in Ian's case, like his jail story has become his superpower. Yes. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I'm a workaholic. I don't know if like that drive would have been it like literally put a fire under me to keep going. Yeah. You know what I mean? So sometimes, and this goes for anybody out there, if you're going through a tough time, it may feel horrible in the moment, but sometimes you need these challenges to get you to where you're supposed to be. And I want to talk to you about that because we know where it led for you, dude.
Yeah.
Insane, dude. Like, you know what I mean? It's one of the most insane.
It's crazy, bro.
Yeah. So, let's take it to the MrBeast video now because you're just trying to figure out life and all of a sudden you get this DM.
Yeah. So I even want to go back to that. I just want to say, like, even after getting robbed by my business partners and losing money in crypto and everything, I did, through the grace of God, I had a friend that came through, put me on to game when it came down to real estate and what I was already working on, and he helped me crush some great deals.
Let's go, dude.
Yeah. I mean, our first deal, when I started working with him, we closed a deal for $35K. We had a few more after that. The biggest one, $70K. And then from there, that's when the Beast Challenge.
Yeah, so you had an upswing even before, like where things were starting to like roll into the right.
Yeah. And then it started to slow down a little bit, and I was just like, I wrote down on a board, I said, God, I need to make this much money in real estate. And this is how I'm going to go about doing it. I even signed up to a coaching program called Commit Action. Shout out to Commit Action. Probably won't even hear this, but who knows? They're super corporate. And I started writing out my goals. And I wrote down how much money I was going to make each quarter. And I just kept praying about it. Then out of nowhere, I get a DM on TikTok. And the DM says, hey, Lenny, how are you doing? There's an opportunity that for you to be a part of a media challenge or something along those lines. I don't remember. I got to go back and read the DMs.
Yeah, they didn't specify exactly what it was.
No, not at that time. But I just ignored her. The next time she reached out was probably about 2 days later because she saw that I read the message. And she was like, I don't know if you heard of MrBeast, but there's an opportunity that you might be able to be a part of. We're looking for police officers. And I was just like, this has to be a scam. Because as a police officer, I would tell people about these scams, right? And she messaged me again. She was like, look me up on LinkedIn. I'm 100% legit. And I was just like, I just ignored it again. So she hit me up. And this is over the span of about 2 weeks before I actually pushed forward. And she hit me up again. She was like, what do I need to do to get you to understand that this is legit? And I said, with me trading watches, that's another thing that I did. Trade, buy, sell, trade Rolexes and high-end luxury watches. In the watch game, what we would do is, even if it was a well-known trader or somebody that wanted, like a client, if they wanted to purchase a watch from me, it was like, we're hopping on a FaceTime call because I need to see you. And then on that FaceTime call, I'm asking for your license. You don't want to provide me with your license? We're not doing the deal.
Yeah, because it makes you not confident about the business. And if you can't just show your license, it's like you might not be who you claim to be.
Yeah, and if you're afraid of me seeing your address, then that just means you're super sketchy.
Yeah.
And you would think that I would use these same things when it came down to me doing the real estate and get robbed by my business partners, but it was because of greed that I didn't take all the precautions I needed to, and I got comfortable. But anyway, I said, if we can do a FaceTime call, that would be great. She said, I can't do a FaceTime call, but I could do a phone call. I said, all right, I'm going to hit you up when I'm done with my son's basketball game. I hit her up. She was like, hey, is this Lenny? I'm like, oh, wow. She was really expecting my call. So she said, yeah, I said, I apologize, but, people try to scam me all the time. I've warned people about these scams. She was like, no, I understand, it's all good. She was like, but just know this, with you being in the, and by the way, guys, I only had 2,000 followers on TikTok at this time, but I was consistent with posting about policing and law enforcement. But she said, just know when it comes down to opportunities, the way that people do things nowadays, it's not by email, even though sometimes it does happen, it's going to be by DM on your social media. And I said, wow. So she said, are you free in another hour for a Zoom call? And I said, yeah, sure, I'll be free. I'm, drop everything I'm doing and get free. So hour later, we're in a Zoom call. She's interviewing me, asking me about my job, asking me about purpose over pension, and, why might I be a good fit? And then she was like, is there anything else you want to add? And I was like, you know what? Actually, I do. So I reached down and I picked up a MrBeast toy that I had under my desk. I didn't know much about MrBeast, to be honest with you. But I knew my kids watched him all the time, and my son Max wanted a MrBeast toy for Christmas. And then my other son, he wound up tagging along and saying, I want the same thing. Now, I knew MrBeast was one of the biggest creators out there. And me being from the 80s with Ninja Turtles and Thundercats and G.I. Joes and My Little Ponies for the girls and stuff like that, I said, I could see this toy being worth something one day. Little did I know that it would be worth me getting into the challenge and me showing that toy to the person that was interviewing me. I think really just took down that whole aura of being a police officer and being a stiff and just being able to show my personality and appreciating what Jimmy has built. I think that kind of broke the plane or kind of broke what may have been something that other police officers that she interviewed might have not been able to, showcase.
To me, that story is crazy. It gives me goosebumps even just hearing you tell it, because it's like you could have grabbed any toy, dude. You could have grabbed any toy. And the fact that it was a MrBeast toy, to me, is absolutely insane. Like, what are the chances?
Well, see, here's the thing that I want to hammer home. Remember I told you that I had written down my goals for the quarter.
Yes.
And I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I do have to mention it. I thought that I was going to do that with real estate. I said that I was going to make $240,000 by June.
Insane, dude.
In real estate. I prayed every freaking morning, bro. Every morning in that same room where that whiteboard was, where I wrote down my goals, where the MrBeast toy was. Every morning, bro. Because I just needed God. And that's exactly what happened. I got $240,000 from the Beast Challenge, but I thought I was going to get it from real estate.
It's crazy, dude.
This goes to show, like, sometimes we think that we have a path within ourselves that we are destined for, but God shows you the real way.
Dude, I'm getting goosebumps hearing you talk. I want to take this moment to talk about my first impression of you because
Okay.
So I was down there on day 50 for the family visit, right?
Yeah.
And, obviously we know what happens in hindsight now. Only one of the families got picked. I'll tell you my perspective and then I'll tell you my first. So, after he goes in and talks to you guys, he comes out on the bus and he's like, well, only one of you are going to see your family today. So now I'm looking at your wife and 3 small children. And then I'm looking at Ian's dad and me and Matt, the 2 stinky friends. I just look at Jimmy. I was like, it's not us, dude. You know what I mean? It's not us. And it should be them. Because, it's like, and you have 3 small children, dude, your wife, like 2 of us are friends. Like we can, but, so that all happens. They all, you meet with your family. And, my first, because at that point, I don't even know what you look like. I know nothing about you. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, but so we're driving around, the bus is driving around the side and I see you guys in the yard in the back and I see you just playing ball with your family. And I was like, dude, this is one of the, like, obviously I was bummed not to see Ian, but when we rounded the corner and saw you guys all playing together, I was like, all right, no, this is great. You know what I mean? Like, this is exactly what should have been. And it was like a really beautiful moment for me to see in the distance. I hadn't had met you yet, but like, I see it. So that was my first impression of you, dude. And I just like, it just made me feel, you know what I mean? It wouldn't have been the same thing if me and we would have, you know what I mean? We would have just hung out for a little bit, had a couple conversations, asked a lot of questions. But like, when it comes to kids, like, you know what I mean? It's like a no-brainer in my eyes, dude.
Yeah, no, that while that whole scenario was going on and he dropped that bomb, and for you guys that think that it was fake, it was not.
Oh yeah, so many people message me. They're like, "Oh, like, but you were wearing the same thing on the last day that you wore on the hat." And I was like, "Yeah, it's because I decided to wear the same." I'm wearing American flag blazer. Go look at any other of the family members, But no, dude, like when they told us that it was like, "No, for real, you're like not seeing them." I was like, dang it, because I was on a mission. You know what I mean? I was on a personal mission to go see Ian that day. And, I wouldn't have had it any other way. You know what I mean? I think it happened exactly how it should have happened with the circumstances that were presented.
Right.
But you know what I mean? It's just like, I think one of the things like, because I'm fine. Matt was fine, but Ian's dad, like I could tell, like
he's an older gentleman.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I could see, it's funny. I'm glad there's a couple things that didn't make the video from at least my perspective. I go to like, after that happens, I go to put my arm around Ian's dad to comfort him. And he's like, don't touch me.
Are you serious?
He was so, I felt bad. Pops was upset. Pops was upset. In other words, he got dogged, dude.
Yeah, they did him dirty. That's what I was thinking about most. The fact that his pops is older.
Yeah.
And he has to do an about face. I'm like, oh man. But and I was a little frustrated. I knew that Ian was gonna let me see my family. He's just a good dude. He has a great heart. And I know for him, he just hammered it home that he wasn't gonna be paying any money to see you guys.
He told us that beforehand too. I knew that going down. Yeah,
I know. And but he just knew how much that meant to me. So that's why in the video I'm kind of like smirking because I'm like, I already know what it's gonna be. But I felt horrible because I knew about his pops, and I was even hoping. I was like, just let him see it, like just for 1 second. Let him peek outside. Let him wave or something. Nothing, bro.
No, I know. Trust me, I was there and I was on the other end of that. And like, Ian's father was really upset, to be honest with you. Like to the point, like we had to like separate for a hot second. He had to just go blow off some steam for a second, dude.
Wow.
Because it's all good, but he was just upset, and I get it because he didn't know though, you know what I mean? Going down, he didn't know it was a possibility. You know what I mean? Like he didn't know it was a possibility until he got down there, and it was like, so that's like the reality of these things. But I want to take it back to the beginning of the video because, you get down to Greenville, North Carolina. What's that first day look like? You know what I mean? Like from the time that you get down there to the point where you're meeting Ian for the first time.
Yeah, so the way that worked was I was down there for 2 days before the video started. The Beast team is great. They pay for your hotel. And they was just like, just get comfortable. And then the day of comes, it was a Sunday. And I get picked up by somebody from the Beast team. They drive me over to, they were initially about to drive me over to the trailer for the site, for the prison. But then it was like, you know what? Bring him to the hangar where they were filming the jet video. So I went there, I used the bathroom. I talked to some of the staff and some of the creative directors to kind of get an idea who they were and who I had been speaking to over the phone. And, I saw some of them on the Zoom call. Some of them I didn't get to meet. So that was great. And then from there, like there was a lot of waiting. There was a lot of waiting because, Jimmy, he's just nonstop, man. And if he's not there, then you got to wait until he is, obviously, because it's his show. Starting a challenge, he has to be there. Even if he's dealing with other stuff, you just got to wait. That's just how it works. So eventually from there, we go to the trailer that's close to the site, and I'm sitting there, I'm watching basketball on TV, had a few snacks, met a few of the staff there, and then I saw some of the staff, they changed into a correction officer uniform. And I was like, okay. All right, I'm going to prison. So they're like, all right, Lenny, we're going to have you change now. We just need your phone. Put your phone in here. And this is what you're going to be putting on. You got this jumpsuit. You got these socks. You got these tighty whities. And I'm like, I haven't wore tighty whities since I was like 12, bro. Maybe even before that. And yeah, I suited up. They told me that I was gonna go into a van in a few, but they would have to blindfold me. So they blindfolded me, then put me into a van or a truck. I don't remember exactly what it was. And we waited probably like another half hour, just driving back and forth, trying to figure out where production wanted us. And
you're still blindfolded?
Still blindfolded. And then we get to a point where they put me in a van, and I don't remember if they mentioned, I think they said, put Ian right here. I had no clue who Ian was. And we were in the van for a little bit. They take us out the van, and we stand outside of the prison. And then you can hear Jimmy just doing his whole spiel. And I'm like, oh, man, it's about to go down. And you hear the drones, like there's a drone just zooming by. And we were doing that probably for like 15 minutes, different takes. And yeah, eventually we walked in. They told us to lift up our blindfold a little bit so we could see where we were going, at least our feet. But then not only that, I was able to see some of Ian's tats. And I was like, all right, this guy's a prisoner. But I was mostly checking to make sure he didn't have like swastikas or anything wild like that on his arm.
Just Harry Potter tattoos.
A
lot of Justin Bieber eyeball tattoo.
So, and then we walked in and boom, that was it.
It's crazy, dude. So was that the first moment that you saw Jimmy as well?
The first moment I saw it, so when I lifted up the blindfold a little bit, I looked up and I was able to see Jimmy from under. Yeah.
Seeing him in real life, it's like, oh, I'm really in this challenge now.
Yeah, it was crazy. He's a lot taller in person. And I was just like, am I really in front of Jimmy right now, in front of MrBeast? But from that point, like after I saw him, I was just like, all right, I need to know what I'm doing. I don't even care about him right now. You know, like I just need to know what's going on, who I'm in here with, and going from there.
Yeah, what was your first impression of Ian?
My first impression of Ian, like I said, when I saw the tattoos, I was like, oh boy, you know, what is it that I'm dealing with? But that stuff doesn't scare me, you know what I'm saying? Like I dealt with a lot of crazy dudes with being a police officer. And, you know, just being a believer in Christ, I just know that I have the ability to adapt. So it doesn't matter who you are. Like, I'm not going to be scared. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll just adapt to the situation and handle my biz whatever way I need to. But when we get in there and he takes off the blindfolds and I look at Ian, I was like, oh, okay. All right, this guy, he seems like a nice guy.
Yeah.
He seems like a nice guy. And like I said, I didn't know anything about Ian. And we could go deeper into that if you want.
You want to hear my first impression of Ian real quick?
Because,
So I met Ian, I think, in like 2012, 2013. And it was when he was back in his concert days throwing concerts.
Yep.
And these would be, I think, part of the string of concerts that would end up getting him in trouble.
Yeah.
So there was another promoter on the show, and the other promoter on the show is the one who hired me to, because I was doing video and camera work. That's like, I would film these shows. So then all of a sudden, Ian comes in. He must be 16, 17 too at the time. And he takes a chunk of money and just pegs the promoter with it. That is my first impression of Ian. That's the first thing I've ever seen. And he's mad at the promoter because the promoter ended up losing all the money from the show. So that was my first thing that I've ever seen from Ian.
Wait, why did he throw the money at the promoter?
Because he was mad. He was mad because the show didn't make the money, and Ian was one of the investors on the show. So it was like, yo, here's the money that you just lost. And that was literally my first impression of Ian.
He threw
it must
like
north
a
of
money.
$10,000. Like, you know, I mean, that was my first time I ever. So
was it in a rubber band, or was it just like a
it
wad?
Was confetti. It was a wad, dude. He pegged the promoter, dude. This is like, bro.
And he's like 16, 17?
60, yeah, we both. So Ian and I like are both born 95, and so yeah, he pegged it. And it's funny. I didn't speak with Ian after that, and then later on, he goes to open up Tuxedo Junction, and he knew me as the video guy that worked with that other promoter. And, you know, ends up hiring me to be the video guy for the nightclub that he ran. And
yeah.
A lot of people don't know this, though, and I'm sure Ian said it a million times, but by the time Ian got to the nightclub, everything was legit and good, but he had dug such a hole from prior to that he was he couldn't get back out. Wow. You know what I mean? So, like, the trouble that Ian got in was actually from before. Like, he managed to actually figure it out and get it legit, but it was too late. You know what I mean? Because he was just digging
a hole, man.
Yeah, so it's tough, dude. But no, it's just funny though too, because you know I hear I know Ian now, and Ian also looked completely different back then too. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like he came out looking better and stronger out of the MrBeast jail, but I mean before it was, you seen how Gucci Mane went in and came out?
Yeah,
that was Ian, dude. Like Ian was, it was a complete transformation when I saw.
Yeah, he put in work in there, man. Every day. I mean, this dude is, I would look at him and I'll be like, yo, this dude is crazy, man. He would walk around for like 4 or 5 hours at a time. And I'm talking nonstop.
Oh, yeah. I've seen the photo. I know exactly what you're talking about, dude. He's just got like this he's got whatever the opposite of ADD is. He's got like this hyper focus where it's like.
I don't think it's opposite. In the video, you even heard me say it. I was like, bro, were you diagnosed with ADHD? I think it's like, okay, I see what you're saying. It's like
he's able just to
just hone in on a level that I've never seen before. And I think I talked about this in the interview. Even when it came down to him reading books, I'll be having a conversation just like I'm talking to you right now, and we'll take a pause. He'll grab a book, and then he'll open it, and then he'll just lay down, and then he'll just stay like this for whatever amount of time he wants to complete what he's doing.
I think it's a discipline thing, dude. And I think that's like something that came after prison, dude. I think he came out like way more disciplined and like way more just able to like, you know, just really focus in. Because I think, and you know, I'll talk to Ian about this too, but like, I think after 3 years of doing what you don't want to do is going to make you make every moment that when you have the freedom to do what you want, like really just make sure that he's locking in.
Yeah, it puts it into perspective. It really puts it in perspective, and you realize how much time you've lost. That's why with my family and me being out now, it's like I'm trying to be a lot more intentional. I can't remember the last time I sat down and watched TV, like watched a full program. I might have watched TV maybe once. You know what? The only TV that I've watched since I've been out is The Chosen, the last season. Other than that, the MrBeast video, the interviews that Ian and I did, maybe a few reaction videos, but other than that, none. Because I'm just focused on my family and focused on getting out what it is that I talked about, and Ian and I talked about the whole time that we were in there.
Yeah, what were some of the things that you guys talked about that you would feel comfortable sharing, and like, you know, maybe something that you learned from Ian through this whole experience?
Yeah, I would say that the thing that I really felt comfortable, or a lot of the stuff that I tried to talk to Ian about was more spiritual, like my spiritual journey, and to share with him how much God has done for me. And you know, he's still young; he's not in that space yet, but he would ask me questions. He was curious. As far as what it is that I learned from him, the work ethic, the power of consistency, how to set all of this stuff up, the wisdom that he gained through his negative experiences, and that if you really put your mind to something that you could do it. And this guy, he read like, I think 60 books. He was reading like a book a day. I've never seen anything like that. And that takes extreme focus, to the point was like, am I just not disciplined, or is he just like over-disciplined? You know, it made me feel like I was lazy. But we both had our different journeys. You know, for me, it was him, excuse me. For him, it was reading those books. For me, it was reading one book. It wasn't about diversifying. It was about, he had a focus, right? His focus was on getting through that challenge by reading those books. So when I go back and I look at him and I say to myself, man, I'm a little envious, because he was just so focused, right? But this is something that was just given to me. Like, you know, I feel through the Holy Spirit. He's telling me, like, God is telling me, don't compare. Everybody's focus is not the same. Ian was focused, and he does have a focus, but my focus is a different focus. And my focus, he had those multiple books. He had those 60 books. But for me, it was about that one book and focusing on that one book. And that one book is the thing that gave me the capacity to be patient with Ian in those times when he said dogged about literally 200 times a day.
Oh, dude, the amount of wisecracks Ian probably was saying. Literally, Ian got out and he was ripping wisecracks immediately to us, dude. I was like, all right, MrBeast, put him back in, dude.
What they didn't show my side. Like, they showed a lot of Ian's humor, but what a lot of people don't know is, like, I'm a huge jokester. If you talk to him, he'll be like, yo, I've never laughed that hard in my life. Some of the stuff, but you wouldn't be able to tell from the video. Like, anybody that really knows me knows that I'm like super.
Yeah, what was one of your favorite moments from the video that didn't make the cut?
Oh man, one of my favorite moments for the video is when we were sick and tired of the food. We were absolutely fed up. And we had some home fries that taste like shredded up paper. That's how bland it was. And we just took it in our hand and we was like, we're making the fries rain. So then we started saying, we make it rain on these trays. And then we got into the camera and we started dancing, and I actually had the video of it. I'll show it to you.
Oh, that's amazing.
But yeah. And then I had like the bandana on my head and we were dancing. But yeah, we had some good moments in there. We were just getting crazy.
Because I think a lot of people underestimate, because what we see is a 30-minute video, you know?
Yeah.
It's 100 days of just, you know, a roller coaster of emotions. You know, some days I'm sure you woke up feeling like, okay, I got this today. Other days I'm like, get me out of here.
Oh yeah, there would be days where it's just like, I would say it out loud, be like, yo, I'm not feeling it today. I'm not feeling it today. And when I would feel like that, I knew that immediately I had to go to the church. We called it the church, the back area where we had like a piece of cloth where we would change. I would, I had some weights set up with a blanket on top. It's like a cushion, and that's where I would study my Bible. That's where I would pray, and I called it church. And he'd be like, "Oh, you're done with church?" So I'll be back there for like 3 hours at a time, and then I'll come out, and he'd be like, "Oh, you're done with church?" And but that in those moments that helped me get through, and I started my day off with that.
Yeah, I'd imagine moments like that in the rec yard were probably so crucial just for your mental health, just to push through it.
Yeah, the rec yard was everything. I'm an outdoor person. Spiritually, I tend to get more in touch with myself when I'm outdoors, and in touch with where God needs me to be when I'm outdoors. And so taking that yard was a no-brainer. Giving it up for the kitchen was an absolutely no-brainer.
Yeah.
It's just absolute no way that I was taking it.
After being in for 100 days, has your perspective changed on from like your police days? Is there anything that you think back on from when you were a cop where you're like, oh, this is harder than I could ever imagine?
Yeah, after being locked up for those 100 days, I just wish that there was more of a proactive approach on keeping people out of jail. I just wish that policing wasn't so reactive. I understand there has to be an omnipresence to prevent crime, but that omnipresence is more so that the numbers don't go up in New York City. It's also to save people from victimization, but I think that we have to do a better job at showing how freaking messed up prison is. And I personally feel that every police officer should go through some type of, maybe like go over the weekend and spend time in a prison to see what it's like.
Just give that perspective.
Just to give that perspective, understand the culture, understand why these men and women might be the way that they are once they get out. Because mentally, it screws you up. That's why I said I needed that Bible. Because it's not just about distracting yourself. It's about making sure that you are good within and spiritually. So, yeah, I think that anybody that's in law enforcement should experience that. I have a different perspective. As is, when I was in policing, I would often feel bad for some people because once I got to know people, once I arrested them or once I dealt with being a neighborhood coordination officer and being more involved in the community, it was like, I knew this beforehand because I grew up in Far Rockaway, Queens to the age of 10, and then I had a lot of family that still lived in Queens, So I didn't just go in there looking like, everybody is a criminal. I never looked at it like that. My father, he grew up in Brooklyn. My mother, she grew up in Queens. I remember my father, he told me that even when I was a cop and I started selling like police apparel and stuff like that, I was like, oh, do you want, some of the shirts I made? And he was like, I don't like cops. And I was like, then why would you tell me to become a cop? But now I get the perspective, like I understand.
There might be moments where, you see the crime and what they're doing, but then there's a moment where you're like, oh, this is a person just like me that, and I'm somebody who, it's tricky. We talked about this a little bit beforehand on the pod or before the pod. But, it's sometimes when someone does a crime, it's hard for them to be perceived differently. You know what I mean? Where it's like, Ian is, in my eyes, come a very, very far way from where he got in trouble. But I know that there's still people who still are like, but he did that bad thing. It's like, do you think just because somebody did a bad thing, it's like they have no shot at redemption ever? It's like, what do we do to change that narrative?
Yeah, the problem is people don't understand forgiveness. People, while being in that challenge, if you're in a challenge with your wife, if you're in a challenge with your kids being in there for 100 days, it's going to stress you out. It doesn't matter who it is, bro. So being in that challenge in days where he would annoy me or he would say something that just gets under my skin, like I had to forgive him. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't out of malice. It was just like, sometimes you would do stuff, it wasn't out of malice. Sometimes I would do stuff, and it wasn't out of malice. It was just like, this is who I am. I'm frustrated. this is what I said, and that's it. But we saw each other as brothers that just got along like how brothers get along. Not to get too off base with what it is that you're saying, the thing is a lot of people, it makes it very easy for them to take the attention off of their flaws that they have by pointing and looking at others' flaws. It takes the attention off of them. Ian has a tremendously great redemption story. He's making a living from what he suffered through, and he's loving it. And that boils people. That's going to boil people's freaking blood. Oh, he stole this amount of money and now he's out and he's telling the stories. That's going to kill people. It doesn't matter how much of that restitution he pays back. He could pay over that restitution. He could go and he could drop. It doesn't matter. The problem is people want to keep you in a box. People want to keep you in a box, especially the people that think they know you the best. I'm going to take it to the Bible, right? Even Jesus Christ, this guy's performing miracles and he's freeing people with demons. He's walking on water. He's doing all of this stuff. And, I'm kind of out of order chronologically here, but when he goes back to where he was born or his hometown, his brothers, his sisters, people that watched him grow up, even though he did all of these miracles and all of these things, they could not accept him for who he was because they saw they saw him grow up. They saw when he was probably running around naked, when he was a kid, watch his diapers getting changed, when he was doing whatever, and they just cannot forget about that. They cannot pass. They just want to keep them in a box, and this happens with so many of us. So those people, they want to keep him in that box. They can't imagine him any other way, and that's because they themselves keep themselves in a box.
It's really, dude, and it's like a lot of projection is what happens, dude.
Yeah, they cannot let it go. They don't want to let it go because it quells their heart. They got their own flaws. They want to point at everybody else, but the moment they look back at themselves, most of them don't. The moment they look back at themselves, they hate themselves. So they just deflect.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about a moment where you and Ian had to come together. The rock, dude. What was the moment when you walked out there and saw that rock? Because I can't imagine what that would feel like.
Yeah, when I walked out and saw the rock, I was just like, okay, there's a rock. Like, what's the deal? He was like, you got to break through this thing and get the key out. I said, all right, bet.
You were ready to go.
Yeah. I was just like, listen, once again, it comes down to my faith, man. I was just like, I know that I'm here for a reason, and I know that there's not anything that's going to be in this challenge that I can't accomplish.
In the video, they mentioned Ian played a part as like a hype man. Now, as somebody who knows Ian, I was like, it doesn't seem like, I feel like Ian would be grinding there too. You know what I mean? So was Ian falling back those first couple of days, or like, what do you think? Like, cause I feel like Ian's a grinder, dude, and he'd be hitting that rock like crazy.
Well, I must say, Ian, he did grind.
Yes.
The whole time. He wasn't confident. He was negative. He didn't think we were going to be able to do it. I was sick of the negativity. But he worked his butt off. No matter how much he cried about it. And they don't say, they put me snitching cop in the video. My name for him was the crying convict.
Dang,
they didn't show it. Yeah. So it was like,
what a great name,
yeah,
dude. They should have let that one rip,
yeah,
dude.
Crying convict, that's what, But he cried, but he worked. Can't take anything away from that dude, bro. That dude worked.
What was the feeling once you guys got that key out, though? You know what I mean? I see what we see on camera where it's like just joy, but, it's a lot different when you're hammering at it for day on end.
Well, even before that, I started to get negative. I started to feel like, I literally cried. Like, there was blood, sweat, and tears. That rock was a matter of car for my wife, no car for my wife. And I was like, you know what? I got to the point where I was like, God, you know what? this is pretty deep, but I found myself worshiping the rock. I found myself idolizing the rock. I found myself thinking about that rock and breaking it. And I even recorded it with the vlog cameras. And I walked around with the vlog camera so that when we went back inside, I could look at it and try to see what type of leverage we might have in breaking it. Like,
it's
I
honestly
studied
a
this
genius strategy too.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? We can't continue to look at it, so I'm going to record it. And I'm going to figure out what we could do. Like, it just started to become an idol and too much. And then, once again, something came to me and said, that rock is not your savior. Jesus is your rock. And there's actual verses where it says, Jesus is, my rock and my salvation. So then I started saying that. And I just said, if we're not meant to break it, then God, that's your will. But if it is, that's your will as well. And I just let that be. Came to a point, and this is once again a point that I really want to emphasize, and one of my biggest takeaways of being in there, being in that challenge. I touched on the whiteboard that I wrote down my goals, right? While in there, I also wrote down, through the power of Christ, we'll break this rock within a certain amount of days. Specific amount of days I wrote down. And I meditated on that. And it happened. And I showed it to Ian. I said, Ian, I'm going to show up in my journal. I had the dates written down for each day. And I said, on this day, this is what I wrote. And here's where we are today.
You and Ian are probably bonded in such like a weird way. You know what I mean? Like brothers for life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So one of the ways that we bonded most, and this is where I really feel like he's my brother, and I just, every hug that we give each other, every dap we give each other, where we say, I love you. Like, I really love him as my brother. We would stay up at night and we would just talk about, life. We would talk about women. We would talk about the circumstances that he's going through with women. And, I would give him my experiences, my downfalls, what I've gone through, so that he could learn from that and understand, that there's a time and a place for you to find your person. And I think that was one of the dope parts about us being able to bond with one another, is like those late nights where we just talk about that. And that's when I realized that he was a good dude, because now he's met the love of his life, and I'll let him share that on your podcast or wherever else.
I meet her for the first time today.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But even with him having this platform and having women hit him up left and right, DM him, we had this running joke that, because he's so organized, so we had a running joke that he had a spreadsheet for everything. And I was like, oh, you got a spreadsheet for your dates and stuff like that. He actually had a calendar where he would put his dates in.
It's so fun. No, I've seen the calendar, dude. I've seen it. Dude, he's got Ian is very organized, dude.
Super organized. That's one thing that I appreciate about him too, and I'm trying to get better at. So I'll be like, oh yeah, did you, you got a spreadsheet based off of like their height, their weight, their freaking eye color and stuff like that. But, we always joke around about that. And even with him having plenty of women to select from, DMing him and stuff like that, he was like, I don't want that. This guy's 30. Usually at this age, this is when people want to rip, run, get crazy. He genuinely just wanted to settle down and have somebody that he could love. Him showing me that was like, this dude's different. He's a 30-year-old and he just wants someone that he could trust, someone that he could give his love to, somebody that has their own ambitions but cares about him too. And I was like, wow. He could be chasing tail, for Lord knows how long, but he really just wants to settle down. And it's 100% legit. So everything that he posts right now about Mrs. Big and all this other stuff, he's been wanting that for a while, and I'm happy that he has it.
Me too, but I will share on here. We hung out after the video, and he came down to hang out with me. He was cupcaking with this girl on the phone the entire time, dude. And I'm happy for my boy, obviously. I love it, but I'm seeing Ian twirl his hair, kick his legs. It's actually really a beautiful thing to see, because he's just mad cute. He's blushing, you know what I mean? So I am very happy for Ian.
And I just want to say, back to writing down what you want and your goals, he wrote down what he wanted in a girl, and that's what he got.
I really believe in manifestation.
Very powerful.
And the power of the tongue too, dude. You got to be careful what you say, because I think there's a lot of people out there that'll just say something negative, and they'll say it like passively. They'll be like, they'll do something wrong, they'll be like, oh, I suck. You know what I mean? But like by saying that, it's like you're putting that out there. Like, you know what I mean?
That.
You can't do that.
You can't do that.
Yeah. So I want to start pulling into the end zone, Lenny, but I have a couple, like, what are some other things that happened during the video too that like may have been funny or silly that you were like, oh, I thought this was going to make the cut, and like maybe it didn't?
That was funny or silly that didn't make the cut. Man, it's just so much. It's so much. We would fight about our chess games in basketball.
Like legitimate, or like more like brotherly fighting?
Like yelling at each other, screaming matches.
Okay.
But we were serious, but we were joking about it all. You know, it wasn't going to come down to blows or anything.
It was like just something to do kind of thing?
No, like it was legit. Like we were legit. We're both competitive. We're super competitive. He doesn't want to admit it, but he's just as competitive as me.
No, he definitely is, dude.
Okay, yeah. So he would edge me out in chess. I would edge him out in basketball. And there was one day he beat me in basketball, and you would think that this dude just won $1 million. Like he beat me for the first time. And
he's like, I'm done playing now. I'm done playing now.
Yo, he's like, I just wanted to win once. Just once. And when we first started playing chess, he tried to flex with me. He was like, you're not winning one chess game. I was like, bro, did I tell me what I'm not going to do? I said, you're not going to tell me what I'm not going to do. And then I would just, there were times where I would just, it got to the point where we said that the first person that sweeps the other person in chess and in basketball in one day cannot talk smack anymore. So we would play like 3 chess games, and then we would play 2 basketball games in chess. And sorry, Ian, but I got the sweep. And I never threw it in his face until now.
That's
until
good
now.
On you. But that's really good on you,
until
dude.
now. He was like, all right, you win. And I just, I played it like a gentleman.
No, I respect that.
I just want to one-up you on that. I got you, Ian.
That's so funny, dude. A couple questions I had. I saw, it never was really explained. I think I saw a lot of applesauce in the video. Is that what I was seeing, dude?
Oh, heck yeah, man.
Can you explain what the deal was with the applesauce in the back of the video?
Every freaking meal came with an applesauce. Lunch, breakfast, dinner, there was applesauce. We got sick of it. So Ian was like, let me just stack it up. He would stack it up on the bars. And eventually I said, let me use this as our countdown for the day. So that was anything that we could do that would give us some type of purpose or align with us being there. We try to create something. So my thing was the applesauce countdown. So I'll be able to look to my right from my bed or wherever, or when walking around, be like, this is all we have left. Then the next day I do it, the next day I do it, the next day I do it, you know?
Yeah, were you guys losing track of time a lot?
No, because we found a hack.
Oh, what was the hack,
we
dude?
We found a hack of vlog cameras.
Dude, it makes a lot. It's really genius too, dude.
Yeah. Our vlog cameras, they had the time on them. Before that, it was tough.
How'd you guys figure that out?
Ian found it out.
Yeah,
he was going through the settings, and he was like, "Oh, the vlog cameras." I was like,
and you know what? I would assume that the cameras they shoot on are the same ones that they shoot with at the studio, or very similar.
Did the vlog cameras?
Yeah, the ones that you guys were vlogging with, were they similar to the ones that Ian shoots with?
They're A7S3s.
Yeah.
So you guys shoot with the A7s.
Yeah. So that's
A7Ss. But they have the A7S3s.
Well, that's why I'm like, yeah, Ian would know to go through those settings, dude.
Yeah.
That's mad funny. Yeah. And then one thing I want to touch on too is that you made a lacrosse stick.
Dude, yeah, man. That's my pride and joy. I wish that they would have shown me playing wall ball and just my progress. Like, I would always give updates and stuff like that. I'm hoping they put out another video where they can highlight that. But thank God to the lacrosse world. East Coast Dies. Carson, you're the man. Greg, thank you so much. Winston, thank you so much also. The lacrosse world took notice. A guy from a big company that's well-known on social media spotted the lacrosse stick, and He put it up on social media, and the lacrosse community just went wild.
I saw, dude, because I follow you, obviously, so I see you sharing everything, dude.
Yeah.
So what's that feeling like?
Oh, man, I feel like a kid again. You know, my lacrosse career growing up, I didn't take it as serious as I should have because I was always chasing my other friends that didn't like lacrosse. They got a lot of the guys that did play lacrosse, they kind of had their cliques and stuff like that in my high school, so I would fall in and out of love with it. Like, I always loved it, but I didn't love the people that I played it with.
No, that makes sense.
Until later on, like as a senior, all of those guys were great, but I was still trying to chase after my friends, so I didn't go and play in college like I should have. I picked up the game a little bit later on as, you know, when I was a police officer. I said, you know, let me get back into this, and I just went full-fledged. But at that time, I was like 27. I was washed up compared to, you know, these college guys, and I just never looked back. I never looked back. So I say this to say I was never highlighted for playing college lacrosse. I was never highlighted for playing high school lacrosse or anything like that. And it's crazy how it comes full circle, and I'm being put on social media for making a lacrosse stick on a MrBeast challenge, and it was one of the most viral posts, you know, and on their page. And then another page that's even bigger than that highlighted it. And these guys, they invited me down to Maryland. They showed me their headquarters. That was another form of inspiration because they're content creators, obviously. They have about 300,000 followers on Instagram, TikTok, Lord knows how much, YouTube, very huge. So to see their headquarters, their humble beginnings to where they are now, and bring my kids with me so that they could see it too, and how much content creation. The way that he started off, this guy from East Coast Dies, was he just did reviews about different lacrosse sticks and some of the sticks that he would string and he would dye, and he would put that on YouTube, and he just blew up over and over, just being consistent. So that was inspiring to see as well. The great thing about being in this challenge that I want to touch on before we wrap this up is now I'm in full-time content creation. Like, that's my thing. Real estate, don't want anything to do with it. I realize that this is what God needs me to do. Obviously, social media is my space. That's my niche. Being in that challenge, I got to see how Jimmy moves, the biggest YouTuber in the world.
Insane, dude.
Absolutely insane. The team, the way that, like at the beginning, we talked about we talked about the thumbnails, how he has a full team for that works full time. That's just that portion. And then you have so many other people that are working on this team, and he has the best of the best in order to get this done. So it helped me realize how important a team is eventually. But then not only that, Ian and what he's built with the Locked In podcast and his whole brand, and being able to speak to him every day about content creation, what cameras he uses, what equipment he uses to light up the studio and to put everything together and to edit and all that other stuff, and how much he gets paid. It was really just God saying, bro, I'm giving you all the plays right now. I'm giving you all the plays. If you get out of here and you fail, it's because you're not putting in the work. And then to go to East Coast Eyes and see what they built off of content, and then to be here with you and see what it is, it's just all coming full circle, bro.
It's so, dude, and life just works out sometimes that way. It's like, because when you're making the lacrosse stick in the challenge, you're not thinking, oh, this is going to turn into what it's going to turn into. You're thinking like, yo, I just need something to buy me some time, you know?
Well, honestly, yes, I did need that. It was just like, okay, let me just make this to buy me some time and to use, and I think it'd just be really cool to see what gifts God has given me to be handy.
Yeah.
But then I also realized lacrosse is one of those sports that just hasn't blown up the way that it should. And anybody that's associated and passionate about lacrosse, the main thing that's preached is growing the game. So I said, excuse me, this is something great for the lacrosse community. If it gets recognized and puts them on a higher pedestal, like, this is my gift to the game.
That's incredible.
I might not be this super athlete like Paul Rabel that started the PLL and all these other guys that are well known for playing.
But you're putting it on a major stage.
Right, I'm putting it on a different stage. I've had the owner of the Professional Lacrosse League reach out to me.
It's insane. So what is that moment? I know I said we're going to wrap, but I'm still, I mean, we're still talking, dude.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
tell me
everything is just coming out. Yeah, I mean, so that got posted on social media. Then, so you have two owners of the biggest lacrosse league in the world, the PLL, Professional Lacrosse League, Mike Rabel and Paul Rabel. Paul Rabel, he played at Hopkins, was the highest paid lacrosse athlete in history at one point. And his brother, they started up this professional league, and he, Mike Rabel reached out and he said, I love what you're doing for the lacrosse community. He's like, what's your address? I want to send you a few things. And I was just like, wow, that's amazing. I mean, this guy is the CEO of a league, and little old me just made a stick, I'm about to be 43 years old. I'm not going anywhere with lacrosse anytime soon, but those are just the things that God is able to do.
It is crazy. And, it also, you have kids too, Now, if they want to get into lacrosse later, it's like...
Well, yeah, one of my sons does play. So
let's go. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so to bring him into all of that and to show him, like, listen, this is what I tell you, put in the work. You know what I'm saying? Because... And my other son, he's into content creation now.
Oh, amazing, dude. So it's really kind of like all your worlds coming together.
It's all coming together, and I could be that inspiration for them. When I went down to Maryland to East Coast Dives, they were right there with me, seeing them behind the scenes, showing them how to film, seeing how they film. The Beast Challenge, I got to see all of that. I'm through the grace of God, I'm able to lead my children and to expose them, and even my wife. My wife, she sees all the behind the scenes and the stuff that's going on, and she's just thankful for it.
Your kids are back in school now?
They go back on Tuesday.
Well, are they prepared to be the most popular kids in school, dude?
I don't know. What? My kids are very humble.
Yeah.
They're just like me, They're not really. It's like, yeah, we had that opportunity. And I was on there, but I think they'll be all right.
I think it'll be cool to see too, because I feel like the kids because even around here, the kids know that I was in the video. Like, it's mostly the kids that know. So I'd be curious to see, your kids in school. And it's like, I think it's just gonna be a really cool thing. It's like, yo, your dad was in a MrBeast video.
Yeah. You know what it is? We've talked about it for so long. It's almost to the point where it's just like, it's cool, and I'm glad. But what I've come to realize is it was a great opportunity, and that's something that Ian and I talked about too. The fact that he has a huge following, and he got selected for the video. There's so many other police officers that they could have picked that have way bigger followers than me. But like I said, I think it's that toy. I think it's just the fact that I bring a little bit of a different element to policing, and my style is a little different. Like, some people look at me and say, okay, you kind of carry yourself like a police officer, but it doesn't jump right at you immediately, And I think that they were able to see my personality and say, okay, this guy isn't this normal, stiff, typical, prototype police officer. He has empathy, he has the spiritual element, and I think that's one of the reasons why they chose me as well. One of the guys said that it was my smile. He said that the fact that I smiled. He was like,
it makes a big difference.
He said, honestly, your smile. And I said, really? He said, yeah. Because so many people have this perspective on police officers, and your smile just breaks down that barrier. And I was like, oh, okay, well.
It makes you feel approachable. You know what I mean? Like, body language is like a huge thing that I think people underestimate too. You know what I mean? Because it's like sometimes, I know when I've had my run-ins with, police officers, sometimes they could be intimidating because, they're not cracking a smile. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like.
So let me ask you, what was your first real impression of me when you got to speak to me, when you really got to see me, not behind the gate playing with my kids, but.
I thought you were very kind. And I already had kind of a preconceived after seeing you with your family, you know what I mean? Because the moment I caught it was I think you were picking up your daughter. I was seeing the most wholesome family moment from there, and I was like, oh, I'm glad that this is the moment that's happening. But when we got to talk, I knew you were a kind dude, and then Ian immediately started informing us, just because we were like, what was the challenge? Who were you with? Everything, and and he was like, I was with Lenny. He's a really good dude, and he's like, and the thing is too, because in the video they show you guys butting heads, but he even told me, he was like, you guys were cool pretty much the whole time. You know what I mean? It's there were some moments where but even for it, it's it never was like a serious issue at any point.
There would be times where I just be like, bro, just stop. Like, just like my brother. Like, he was my brother. It was that's my brother for real.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's talk about day 99 before we get out of here too, because that was the last big hurrah, you know? And I know how Ian feels about solitary, you know what I mean? So you guys both go into solitary. Whoever clicks the button gets all the money. You definitely didn't have a moment. Like, what you tell me? Did you think that Ian would press the button? I'd be curious.
I didn't think Ian would press the button off the strength of greed. But I was genuinely, so there's a part in the video when I was like, "You're right, buddy." You know, after the whole snitching thing.
Yeah.
I was like, "You're right, buddy." And he was like, "I just want to get out of here." Like, I was genuinely concerned about him.
He hates, I mean, obviously, because he's actually dealt with solitary, you know what I mean? And as someone who's Ian's friend, like, it's literally his, like, probably number one nightmare I'd give. Like, that's probably up. I don't know what else he fears, but I know solitary is one of them, dude.
And I knew that too.
Yeah.
With the fact that he was in there, he said they couldn't pay him $1 million to go back in there. That he'd rather quit. So I was worried off the strength of that, you know, but
Ian's also not a quitter, though. You know what I mean?
He's not a quitter. And you know what? They did the right thing to make sure that we were taken care of. That first time that he was put in there, I think it was a little thrown off guard of how hot it would be. I think that made him a little uncomfortable. But they took care of it right away. They took care of that right away, and I think that helped. And, you know, one thing they didn't show because they wanted to build up the beef, probably within 45 minutes of us being in there, we both looked each other in the eye, shook each other's hand, and said we weren't going to screw each other.
Was there any moment where you thought about taking the money? Like, I feel like you guys were on the same page. But be honest, you know? You have a lot of thoughts. You only have your thoughts in there, so it can't not be a thought. It must cross the head at least once, but, like, actually doing it's a whole different thing. You know what I mean?
What they didn't show in the video is I drew a huge cross on the wall. The first thing that I wrote verses within that cross. The first verse that I wrote is to love God with all your mind, body, soul, and strength. But the second greatest commandment is to love thy neighbor as you love yourself. Would I want him to do that to me? No. So I'm not going to do it to him. I love him as I love myself.
So the 24 hours go. You guys walk out. You know, they're about to pull down the curtain. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts were, I can't wait to see him so that he sees I didn't screw him.
Let's go, dude. And then you guys win. You guys, this is where I'm back now. So we're standing outside at this point, I guess, as this is happening now. And yeah, because we were lined up for a second and, you know, Jimmy came in to do that. You know, what's the moment when you pop out of the jail finally and see your family and everything? What's that feeling like? Describe that to me.
It was really emotional. That day 50 was hard. Being away from my family and just knowing how good of a wife that I had or have that toughed it out for all those days. Then the emotion, seeing that my kids really miss me. You know, they were crying, and when they were leaving, you know, my son Max, he wasn't doing well with his health, and I think a lot of it might have dealt with me not being there.
I remember speaking to your wife on day 50, and I remember, you know, I just asked how everything, granted, I just had met her, but I just like, how's everything going? She's like, it's been tough. You know, it was like really tough for her, you know, and I know that one thing that she mentioned was like, you know, getting the kids to practice and all that. It's a lot for a single, like at that moment, it's just like you're basically like a single mom,
She
you know?
She didn't have, you know, she had some help from my sister-in-law, and I think all the time I actually took her and her family out. I was like, listen, this is just for, you know, showing up. But other than that, she didn't have any other support. And, you know, my sister-in-law, she has her own family that she had to take care of, and she still jumped in and did what she could. But aside from her, she didn't have any other help. She was bringing my son back and forth to practice, soccer and lacrosse. My daughter, she's a handful at times. So it was me seeing them. it was a relief. But even still, after that, and I don't want to go too deep into this because it'll be another half hour. But adjusting, that could be a whole nother podcast. Adjusting to being with them after those 100 days, it's been hard. I'm finally starting to get back to normal, but it's tough. And thinking about real prison once again and reform or lack thereof, and why some people just go right back, it's because it's hard.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, dude. And like even when Ian was, we didn't know what the challenge was ahead of time.
Yeah.
Dude, you should have heard some of the things we were rattling off, dude. We thought we were like, oh, you're gonna be chained to somebody for 100 days. Like, we were just spitting all ideas. But I think Ian still would have done the challenge too, like had he had known what it was ahead. But I know, one of his promises that he made to his family is that he'd never go back to prison. So it's like, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, and I understand it's like a MrBeast prison, but dude, when Ian was in actual jail, like he could at least like FaceTime us. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like we'd get FaceTimes from him.
Right.
So that's why, like, when I was at, like, Jimmy asked me, he's like, what was harder, this or actual? And I told him, I was like, dude, it's definitely this, because like I haven't heard from Ian at all, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like being away from your family's got to be like one of the hardest parts.
Yeah, it was the hardest part, 100%. And I don't ever want to relive that, and I don't want people in this world to live that either.
I know, because I think a lot of people will comment on the videos and they'll be like, 100 days, that's easy. But like, a lot can change in 100 days, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah, a lot can change. A lot can change. For the worse, for the better.
Yeah, Lenny, I'm going to end this by asking you a question I ask all my guests.
Okay.
Is, what's your message to the world? If you wanted to be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
I want to be remembered for bringing... That's a really good question, man. I want to be remembered for not honoring myself. I want to be remembered for always putting God first for anything that I accomplish, and that there's nothing that I could do without him. It's not me. It's not my power. It's the gifts that he's given me and the responsibility for me to be obedient with those things. So anything that you see that I do, anything that I am doing, is because I've been given an authority to do it, and it's not by my own power. It's through the power of Christ. It's through the power of God. And you all have that ability also. It's just a matter of you taking the time and searching for it.
Lenny, if people want to connect with you or find you, how can they?
Perfect. Yeah, so you can find me on all platforms. You can find me on Purpose Over Pension. That's YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Spotify, Purpose Over Pension Podcast, Apple Podcasts as well, Purpose Over Pension. And my website is purposeoverpension.com. If you want to, I'm going to have my podcast dropping very soon where you could come to my studio. I'm in Long Island. If you're interested in coming onto the podcast, go to my About page on purposeoverpension.com and just fill out the form, tell me a little bit about yourself, and let's get it going.
Let's go, Lenny. Thank you for coming on.
No, thanks for having me, man.
Congratulations on everything again, dude. It's been insane to see the whole everything, dude.
Yeah.
It's been crazy. But yeah, congratulations, man.
Thanks. Sorry it's taking so long, but you asked some really good questions and it made me think deep, and you have a beautiful setup here. You have something great going.
Thank you. And I always tell my guests when they think on their answers, it just shows me that they're more intentional with what they say.
Yeah.
So I think that it's very important to be intentional.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, Lenny, thanks for coming on, dude.
Thanks for having me.